Hey guys, I'm April from Giggle Glitter Graphics, and this is a step-by-step tutorial to get you started on making a journal using my Graveyard Serenade journal kit. This kit is available in my shop, plus there is a 4-sheet freebie kit that goes with this that you can get by signing up for my email list, and that information, that link to do that, is in the description down below. So this tutorial is targeted at those of you who are short on time. So I am limiting supplies and I'm limiting the amount of thought that you have to put in to streamline this process. Everything is going to be step by step, working things in broad strokes. I've also designed the kit so that you don't have to worry about what you're printing on as far as paper. It recommends either paper or cardstock on every single page in the kit, and you can print those out ahead of time or print just what you need for each step when you get there. Each step will also note at the beginning what I'm using to do that step, but please keep in mind sometimes I forget. I will almost always be using Fabri-Tac or my Uhu glue stick, and I'm also using my Distress ink in black soot and an applicator, so this is a little bit universal throughout the whole tutorial. As you can see, there's still a lot of decorating to do on this, but I've got it to a point where I can go through page by page and just add my extra things like lace or ribbons or little clusters, things like that on each page separately when I have the time. So I might only need to spend 15 minutes decorating this one page and then I can go on with my day, but I still got some crafting in for the day. So this is going to get you set up so that you are in the same place, and each step is broken down enough that you should be able to accomplish that in one crafting session. So let's get started and get this journal made. So the first thing we need to do is build a cover and put the pages inside. This is the most printing you'll probably do at one time for this project, but it's not particularly difficult and you can go do something else while these are printing on your printer. I printed all 24 pages at the same time. I printed the first 12 on one side and then I just flipped them over and printed the other 12 on the other side. I did not worry about what was on the front and what was on the back. I just left it up to chance. So this gives me 12 pages printed front and back, and I'm going to pull one of these out, and I've picked this one. It has the ivy pattern on the back. For me, it might have something different for you, or you can pick a different page. It doesn't matter, any page. We're gonna make flips out of these. So a graphic element on the front and a pattern on the back is nice, but not required. Just pick a page, set it to the side. We're gonna forget about it for now. It'll come back in another step. So now I'm left with 11 pages printed front and back. I'm just going to put those right over here. I've also printed 2 pages of the darker ivy pattern, left it blank on the other side, also on paper. And I've printed the light ivy pattern, and I left this one untrimmed so that you could see that you're gonna have a white border around all of these pages that you'll have to trim off with a paper trimmer. So I'm going to have to trim this still, but I wanted you to see that in case you're new to making journals with printables. So I got one piece of the white ivy. I printed the page with the 2 coffin tucks on it. There are those, and I've cut them out and put a little bit of black Distress ink. I'm using black soot. And I'm being very sparing with this. It is black ink. So I'm going very sparingly around the edge, but I wanted to give a dark, moody feel to this kit. So I'm using this ink pretty much exclusively throughout the journal. I've also printed the 2 cover panels. Now the tucks, these coffin tucks, and the cover panels are both printed on cardstock. And these are blank on the back as well. And then I've pulled a blank piece of cardstock, just the same cardstock that I'm printing on. I've got a blank piece of that, and this is going to be the base for my journal. The only other supplies I need are some glue. I'll probably use this Uhu glue stick primarily. You can use something like Beacon Fabri-Tac. This dries faster, and you have a little less curling. This goes on faster, and you're gonna have a little curling, and you're gonna give it a little more dry time, because I feel like things put together with this are a little like softer, so you don't want to crease or bend things while this is drying still. You're also going to need ribbon or cord, about 26 inches. I'm using this lace here. This is just to tie our pages into our journal. And then an optional item is a corner rounding punch. This one has 3 sizes on it. And this is just to add a little detail to some of the elements if you decide you want to round the corners on your front panels or on the inside covering, which is the light ivy. So this is an optional step. So now I've placed everything to the side except for my 2 dark ivy pieces of paper. These are trimmed around the edges, my piece of white cardstock, and my Uhu glue stick. I've also grabbed an extra piece of paper to cover my work surface because this can be just a little bit messy. It's not too bad. So I'm going to apply these ivy papers to one side of my cover, but I want them to overhang the edges so that I can wrap this, so I can fold it in so that I also get this pattern around the edge on the inside of my cover. So I'm just going to grab my glue stick. And I'm going to lay down right on the edge of on the front surface here, a really good coating of this glue stick. I'm just going to coat the whole thing. You're going to probably tear through quite a bit of glue. Again, you can use your liquid Fabri-Tac. I find I don't get a lot of curling with that. If you have another glue that you like, you can use it. Just be aware on a large surface like this, if it is too wet or water-based kind of glue, it could cause some curling or other problems. So I've got that on. I'm not having to worry about it being straight because this is not a linear kind of pattern. And I'm just going to make sure there's glue under all of it, all of the edges. And then smooth that down. I'm going to kind of turn this around, so because I'm right-handed, a little easier to work with. And I'm going to overlap a little bit with my glue and repeat that for the rest of this. Get a good bit of glue along there because I don't want this edge to stick up, and I'm just going to place this. The prints won't line up, but once you put your cover panels on, you're not really going to notice that these prints don't line up. Just make sure there's a good glue amount underneath your seam so that this edge is pressed down nice and firm and isn't going to pop up. And I've got a little glue on my surface. I'm just going to get this out of the way and flip this over. There we go. And clean up any, sometimes I get little blobs of glue. There's a little blob of glue right there. And this might be a touch hard to see, but I've got my cardstock here on my paper. Now I need to trim this up just a little bit. The overhang here is good, but on this side, there's quite a lot of extra material. So I'm just gonna grab a pair of scissors. These are just some big all-purpose scissors I have on my desk, and I'm gonna cut about 1 inch away, maybe 1.5 inches. Just trim that up. And you can save this to use in your journal later. And then I'm gonna just go and cut these corners so that it's a little bit away. So whenever I fold these in, I don't have kind of a naked corner. If you have the little book corners, you can put book corners on this and cover that up. That's a nice little cheat step. And I do have some book corners and I might put them on my journal later. But for now, let's just stick to the super easy, super simple method. All right. So now I've got something that looks like this, kind of like a funky placemat. I'm going to fold this over and I'm going to grab a bone folder. You can use the back of your scissors, your thumbnail, anything like that. And I'm just going to kind of fold this over right at the edge of this cardstock. And I want a nice, sharp, crisp line there. I'm going to fold that up. Repeat that on this bottom side. I should just kind of push right up against that piece of cardstock. And now I'm going to glue these 2 edges down with my glue stick. Again, very generous, and make sure everything is glued down really nice and tight. It's okay to go further. And then you see I don't have quite a good seam there, so I'm going to press that down. Use my hands. I'm trying to use as little supplies as possible for you guys. So if you're new and you don't have a lot of tools and things, that you don't feel like you have to run out and buy a bunch of stuff. And again, I've got a little flap here, so apply a bunch of glue and get that laid down. And then I'm going to repeat that for these corners. So just fold those up. Got a nice crease. And come back with my glue stick. And remember, we like to overglue. Make sure everything is down nice and tight. And now we have the base for our cover. Next, we're going to apply the covering to the inside of our journal cover. I am using this light ivy paper. I have trimmed my white edges off and I added a little bit of that black distress ink around the edges. Now this is where you might like to use your corner rounding punch, and I'll go ahead and do that. I'm just going to use the medium setting and round each of these corners a little bit. This gives one less friction point. You're less likely to catch these corners if they're rounded versus if they're pointed. So it's going to help your journal be a little more durable. And that one is giving me trouble. It's a little funky, but that's okay. And I'm going to have to reapply my distress ink to those rounded corners. Right, like so. I'm going to check this and make sure that my ivy is pointing the direction that I want. That's more important for the inside. This kind of has a little bit of an upward direction. I like that look. This one, since we use the paper sideways and it's a little more higgledy-piggledy, not really a big deal which way I place that cover. But I'm just going to glue this right onto the inside. So I've brought back my scrap paper and I'm going to flip this over and just put a really good coating of my glue stick all across the entire back of this, making sure I get all the way to the edges and all the way to the corners. You do have to move a little bit fast on this. The glue stick wants to dry. Not super fast, but a little faster than I would like sometimes. So make sure you don't have any crazy blobs there. And I'm going to just kind of slide this out. I don't want to bring my cover on top of the area I glued, because then I'll end up gluing the back of my cover to the surface I'm gluing on. And I'm just going to try to put this down as straight as I can. Like so, and then smooth that all out. And again, this is where the bone folder can come in handy. If you have one, you could also use a ruler or some kind of a credit card or a driver's license. That would work as well. Just something firm and straight that you can press across there. So now we've got the inside covered. And we've got our panels to go on the outside, but it's easier to center. There we go. It's going to be easier to center these panels whenever there is a crease to kind of find the middle with. So we're going to let this dry really, really well. Do not let this be kind of soft to the touch, or else when you start to fold it, you're going to have a bad time. You don't get as nice and sharp of a crease. And it's just, trust me, let it dry really, really well. And then we're going to fold it in half and move on to the next step. All right, so this is nice and dry now. You'll be able to feel the difference whenever this is ready to fold. It's going to feel a lot crisper and firmer. And I'm just going to very gently fold this in half. Make sure everything is nice and tight, and then use your object of choice to firm that crease up. I'm using my bone folder. This might have needed to dry just a little more. I have a little bit of creasing here up the middle. That usually only happens when the glue isn't quite dry, but my pages are going to go over that, so it's not too big of a deal. I'm going to grab my ink. You don't need to do this, but I'm going to run so you can see what I'm doing right along this edge. And then when I open it up, I have a nice line down the middle there. This will help center things up as well on the front and back covers, or you can just leave it like that, however you like. And I'm going to grab my two panels. It's up to you which one goes on the front. I think I'm going to put the angel on the front and then the instrument on the back. So open this up. I feel like that's a little easier for me to work with. And this time I think I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac just in case you were wondering what it looks like to use this. Also, it'll dry a little faster. So this comes out in a bead. I do try to get it close to the edges, but I don't put a large amount. I keep it really thin. See if I can get that really close to the camera. Just a really thin application of this glue, and then I kind of just swoosh it over the middle. And then continue to get that nice thin bead around the edges, not all the way to the edge, just a little ways away. And I like the Fabri-Tac because unlike the glue stick, you can kind of push things around and move it around to center it better. So this has some slide to it, where the glue stick wants to just kind of go down and stay down. It's not as forgiving as far as placement. If you get any glue coming out of the edges, you can just grab a paper towel and wipe that up. Mine looks pretty good. And I'm going to repeat that for the back panel. So again, nice thin, thin, thin line of glue all around the edges. And then some fun zigzags in the middle. Right up the side, and try to center that up. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to go to the inside, and I have my coffin tucks here. And it's up to you. I am going to grab my corner rounding punch again, since I did take the time to round these, and it is going to cover it up just a little bit. So I'm going to round these as well. Touch up my ink around the edges. So these are going to be tuck pockets. We're going to go ahead and glue 3 sides of these down, and then the middle of this will be free so we can tuck some things inside of there. So I'm going to run a bead of glue along the top, this long side, and across the bottom. And then I'm going to line up my rounded corners. Right like so. And then repeat that for the second one. Now we're ready to insert the pages into the cover. So I'm going to grab my 11 pages, and I'm going to start folding these all in half and then figure out what order I want them to go in. So we're going to fold in half, fold the next one in half, Put these up here. And then we're going to start nesting them one inside of the other. So I'm just going to keep building on that. Fold. And then nest. And continue that until everything is stacked up. You are going to want to vary, because when I've printed these, you can see a lot of these patterns have all ended up on the back side. So I'm going to want to take some of these and flip them over. So I'm varying where those pattern pages are, and then I'll show you. We're going to give this a little page through so that we can decide how we actually want everything to look when we go through the journal. I'm just going to go back and forth, and you can always, let's see, let's fold this one this way. And you can always reverse the fold on something if you don't like how it's all coming out. It's not a big deal. Don't stress about it. Just fold them, stick them together, and we'll go from there. I'm going to switch this one. And remember, I do still have my one page that I pulled out. This one off to the side to use later. All right, so I have all my pages, and really quickly, I can tell you, I think I want that one to be my first page. I want this one on the outside, so that when you open the journal, I have this. This is what it looks like when I open it up. Oh, there we go. So open it, and I have my bird. So that is going to be my first one. And I'm just going to start paging through here. And look for spaces where I just don't quite like the flow. I think I want that on the inside in the center. Maybe that's my center spread. Oh, I like that graveyard as the center. So let's put this one here. Maybe flip it. So this is up to you. You can put as much thought into this as you want. But just page through, thumb through, and arrange your pages so they look the way you want when you go through the journal. Once you have your pages the way you want, we are going to insert these into the journal, and we are using the easiest method to bind these into the journal. This is also going to let you add and remove papers later if you feel like your journal is getting too big, or you wanted to add some small pages in, slide something in. You can make adjustments to your pages later on. So I've got my ribbon. This ribbon is, let's see if I can flatten this out. It is twice the height of my journal. 1, 2, plus some extra. I measured it. It's about 26 inches. And I'm just going to wrap this around so that it goes up the center of the journal. And I'm going to line my ends up. As best I can, and then I'm just going to tie a knot. When you do this, make sure you don't tie it too tight, too snug down to the top of the journal, but not too loose so that your pages slip out. I want it to be just right. I'm just going to pull that down, because if it's too tight, it's going to cause your spine to buckle. If you are having trouble getting that knot in, where you just kind of loop it around and make one knot, you can tie a knot just like you're tying your shoe. So right over left, left over right, and make a knot that way. And that might also let you get it a little bit tighter if you're not getting as tight of a knot as you'd like with the loop around method. Now I'm just going to adjust this so it runs right up the center. And then for aesthetic purposes, with this ribbon, if you're using a cord, you shouldn't need to do that. I am actually going to glue this down using my Fabri-Tac. So let me get I have a little binder clip here. Just going to put that on to keep this from opening up. And I'm just going to run a bead of glue right under my lace. And press that down into the glue. And I feel like that looks a lot neater and more finished. I'm going to repeat that for this side. So if you are using a wider ribbon, this is going to secure it better and make it look a little more neat. So now that our journal is all put together, it is ready to start inserting some of our decorations. So I'm going to put my journal to the side for now. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the pullouts. There are 2 pages of pullouts. There's this one with the bird and this one with the piano. And then we're also going to use that piece of paper we saved in the last step to make some flip ups as well. So we're doing pullouts and flip ups in our journal with these 2 different pages. So I have already printed these on regular paper, my pullouts, and I've printed a paper on the back side of them. It doesn't matter what paper you decide to print on the back, just pick whatever one you like. And then you're also going to need your Fabri-Tac or glue with a point on it, and a pair of scissors, and then a paper trimmer can also be helpful. I'm going to use my paper trimmer and my scissors to cut these out. You can see most of it is straight lines, but you do have this slightly rounded tab here, and I'm going to use my scissors to do that part. I'm not going to do it on camera. It just is going to take a minute. So let me cut these out real quick. All right, so I've got these both cut out now. There's the other side. I did put my black distress ink around all of the edges, both of those, and I ended up using my corner rounding punch on this. You could do it freehand. I just decided to do it a little faster and easier. And then I cut out these edges all with my scissors. So now you can see that there's lines on these, and we're going to fold these along the lines. We're going to make kind of a Z, a zigzag. So I'm going to fold right along this line. See if I can do it neatly. I'm going to fold this back and forth. What this does is allows our pullout to kind of flow freely. So I like anything that I have that's going to be hinging back and forth or have some movement to it. I try to go back and forth a couple of times and really firm up that crease in both directions, which is going to make it move much more freely. So this panel is going to go this way, and then I'm going to fold right along that line this way. And again, I'm going to go back and forth, firm up that crease. If you don't get exactly on the lines, it's fine. This will still work. They're just kind of there as a guide to kind of pull in and out. And then if you don't like how those lines look, or you just want to give it a little bit more dimension, you can add that distress ink right along those creases, which is what I'm going to do, like that. Now I'm going to repeat that for the second one. So now I'm going to go through my journal and find a place to put this. I don't repeat too many images. I did repeat this one because I liked it so much. So I'm going to try to put this pullout further in the back of the journal. So I'm going to look for a page that's kind of plain. And let's see here. I think maybe this one. So let's grab this pullout. And this is going to add a tuck element. You can glue this piece here down all the way, but I'm going to glue mine in as a tuck so that I can add more ephemera underneath. So let's fold this up, turn it over, and I'm going to glue the top, the long side, and the bottom. Right, like so. And I'm just going to, you could center it on the page. Placement does not matter too much, as long as there's room for this to fold up into the journal. Trying to make sure that is straight. So there is my first pullout. These are going to move just a little bit. As you fill up your journal and it's closed, it'll probably stay inside pretty well, but you can add a decorative paper clip here to hold it down, or maybe a little Velcro dot here, so you have to undo that and then pull it out. It's up to you. There's some clever ways you can secure that, but that's going to come in and out, and then I have a little pocket here to tuck some ephemera into. So let's place the second one. Let's go to the front of the journal now. Place this second one, and I like to do these on the right hand side of the page. On the left they're not going to work as well, so I like to go on the right hand side of my spreads with these. This might be a good one. I like that. Let me double check and see if there's somewhere else I want to put it. I wonder if I did this. That would poke out a little bit. No, you can just kind of go through and think and plan and decide what you like the look of. I think I'm going to go with my gut and go here. So same thing. I'm going to glue those 3 sides to make a tuck. And again, you could glue it all the way down, and you can always glue it down later if you decide you want to cover that up with some kind of paper or decoration or something like that. You can always make it not a pocket later, but you can't make it a pocket later. All right, and there is the second pull out. So now let's work on our flip ups. Now we're going to take this piece of paper, and I think I'm just going to tear this in half. Let's add a little bit of texture by having a rough edge. I'm going to grab, I'm looking for my regular ruler. There's my regular ruler. Some kind of straight edge. And I'm going to tear this so it's a little more narrow than half, because if you do it the exact same size as these pages, it's not going to really have enough room to move. You're going to want it to be a little more narrow. So you can do that by, let's see, let's just tear here. And then I think I'm going to take a little bit off this edge here. And you can tear this freehand as well. You don't have to use a straight edge. You can just get in there with your fingers and just kind of pull those edges off and get a more jagged edge. But there is my panel, and you can see it's a little less wide. So let's find a place for this one. We can decide if we want to do like a reveal where this is glued down and then it flips up and we see something else. I kind of like that idea. Let's do that one. Now you can let this kind of poke out of the bottom a little bit, but I don't like that too much, because then if you go to sit your journal on a shelf, it's not going to sit very well. So what I'm going to do is fold this over at the top by about, I have a ruler right here, I can tell you how much, 3/4 of an inch. The amount doesn't need to be exact. I'm going to grab my Distress ink and give this a little bit of zhuzh around the edge so it pops out, a little more dimension. You can also tear the bottom of this page if you want to add more texture there. That's something you can come back and do later if you want. And then I'm going to open this up, and let's do a little bit here as well, so that when this is flipped up, there's a little more interest. And grab my journal, flip this back down, and then that tab is what is going to glue down to the page. Got a generous amount of glue, and I'm just going to, I don't want to cover up too much of my decoration there. Just place it like that. And now I've got a flip up here. Again, I can come back, add lace, anything I want here. The whole purpose of this design method, this assembly method, is to be able to break everything into manageable pieces and be able to come back later and add and build when you have the time. So there is my first flip up. And then let's find a place for the second one. I like to kind of spread things out through the journal. do a reveal here, but I do like that page a lot. You know what? Let's do this one. And I want to tear this one by hand for you, just so you can kind of see the difference. And I'm going to let it have some interesting edges. To the bottom. And the other side. Can be a little fiddly. It's not as fast as the other method, but you get a much more interesting edge. And again, I'm going to grab my black distress ink and really bring out those torn edges. And then same thing as on the other one, I'm going to fold over about 3/4 of an inch and glue this in. Now, because I'm going over a paper that's just a pattern and there's nothing under there, I'll probably add some interest later when I come back through at some point. There we go. And here is my second flip up. All right, for this next step, we are working with the pocket tags pages. There are 4 pocket tag pages and then 1 pocket tag ephemera page. So I've cut out all of my ephemera and all the pocket tag pieces, and I have also inked them around the edges with my black soot distress ink. I'm also going to be using my Fabri-Tac glue, and I might use a little bit of paint or coffee dyed paper or dictionary paper or some kind of add-on, but that is totally optional. You can just stick with the digital printouts and the glue for this step. And I just wanted to go through each of these and assemble them quickly for you so you could see how they go together. These are just really simple pockets. So I kept the pieces from each page together, and I'm just going to glue each pocket here on 3 sides and line everything up right at the bottom of the large tag. So there's a large tag, 2 pockets, and then a large piece of ephemera for each of these on their individual pages. And then this is the same thing, just 3 sides, left, right, and bottom. Line this up. And then I like to let these dry before I tuck ephemera inside of them, or else my ephemera kind of gets glued inside. So I'll set this one to this side. Here is the second one, the headstone theme. Again, I'm going to take that angled pocket. Now, if you really want to, you could mix and match these pieces. They are all sized the same, so everything is a little bit mix and match. Or you can stick with the way I've designed them. There's no right or wrong way. Plenty of room for creativity here. We've got tag number 3, large pocket, all 3 sides. So you can see I'm just lining everything up right at the bottom. Nice and quick. And the last one is assembled the same way. So I have all 4 of these tags assembled, and now I can just kind of disperse these little ephemera pieces across the tags. I did size these so that they could kind of poke in these little pockets, but there's not really a specific place for each one to go. Just have fun with it. You'll have a couple, like an odd number, but there's tons of ephemera in this kit, so you can grab some other pieces and add them in later. And obviously, there's more decorating space on the bottoms of these for you to add once you come back into your decorating phase. But for now, these are ready to go into my journal. I'm going to grab my journal, put these to the side, and let's go and find some pages to put these on. Now, you could absolutely slip one of these right in, and I think I might do that into my front tuck because I really like the way that that looks. I'm not sure I want to repeat instruments. Maybe this one here. I do like that. Now, I did not print the backs of these, but that's okay. I could glue a piece of coffee dyed paper or textured paper or something like that, music paper, to the back of this just to finish it off, since I'm not gluing this down. So I think this first one is going to tuck right inside my front cover. Let's find a place for my second one. I do like to space things out quite a bit. I think maybe this area might be a good spot. And I do like the piano one. Now, here is where the coffee dyed paper or specialty paper is going to come in. You can glue this directly down on the page, but it might be nice to break up all of this pattern a little bit to bring more attention to this tag on the page. So I've got some handmade paper today, but you could use dictionary paper, coffee dyed paper, anything like that. And this one has some metallic threads in it. And I do like how that looks. So I'm going to grab a straight edge, and I want to pull this so it is just slightly larger. And those threads don't want to tear, so I'm going to kind of do that and then grab my scissors. There we go. Oops. Specialty paper comes with special problems. And then I will go ahead and tear the top and bottom of this as well. I might have to cut some of these threads. These little gold threads going through here, they're so fun, and I don't mind that that edge is straight. Let's go ahead and grab the Distress ink and just bring a little attention to that top and bottom edge. And I know I didn't mention it earlier, but I am going to grab my glue stick. You can use the other glue, no problem, but I'm just going to put a nice layer of glue on here. And then add this piece of paper on top. So this is optional. It just adds another layer of something, and then there's a little shine in there that's going to pop out whenever you go through. So now that I have that in, I can glue this entirely down, or I can turn this into a tuck pocket. And as I always say, you can't turn something into a pocket later, but you can make it a pocket now and ignore it, or make it not a pocket later. So I'm going to leave this edge open. Flip that over, do 3 edges. And now some of my journal cards are sized just right to go in there. So that is a great option. Put a little tab on it and be able to pull that in and out of this area. So now we've inserted one of our tags. We've got one in the front, one here. So let's go past the middle of our journal. Maybe right here. And now that one, I really like how that looks all on its own. I could come in and add some lace or something to the page later, but I'm going to glue this one straight down. Right like so. And let's find a place for that last one. I am tempted to put it right underneath this little flip up, but I'm not as excited by that as I thought I would be. So I'm going to leave that be and see what other options I have. Oh, I like that. There we go. And I don't worry about getting every single little edge glued down on this. I don't mind a fluttery edge. It kind of adds texture. And let's go ahead and make this one a pocket as well. So we'll want to leave the right side open. There we go. And that is it for the pocket tags. For this next step, we're going to be working with our pockets and tucks and bands pages. So there are 3 pages of pockets that come with the kit. And I wanted you to see these uncut so it's easier for you to see what you're looking for. So those 3 pages of pockets are in the kit. There are 2 pages of bands, these tall ones and then the horizontal ones. And then if you're signed up for my email list, or you sign up for my email list through the link in the description down below, there is another set of pockets that come with that freebie kit that you get for being on the email list. So I'm going to cut all of these out. They are all printed on regular paper and nothing is printed on the back sides. There's no reason for that. So I'm going to cut all of these out and put my ink around the edges, and then we'll work on putting these throughout our journal. All right, so everything is cut out and the edges are inked. The pockets with the tabs, I folded the tabs over. And I do want to point out that these pockets with the tabs do come with a sheet of appropriately sized ephemera. These are sized to go specifically into these pockets. There's some bigger cards that go down into these. You do not have to use these cards with these pockets, but I just wanted to make sure that you know that they can go together. So I'm going to make some space here and bring my journal over. So when I decide where pockets go, I don't glue them in right away. I go through and I look for these pattern pages and I try to decide what I would like to see on each one. And I want to make sure that I've got my pockets dispersed nicely throughout my journal. So I'm going to just tuck them inside, trying to find things that I like the look of. And I also have these bands, so I want to make sure I use my bands as well. I kind of like the way that that one looks. And I'm just going to go through and place these. Let's see. So this is a little bit of a process, but kind of will get the idea of what I'm doing. I am going to go ahead and video all of this process for you, but I'm just going to fast forward it a little bit so that you can see it, but not be here while I kind of muddle through and decide where everything goes. All right, so I've gone through and I have tucked all of my pockets, tucks, and bands inside. I did video a segment where I glued them in and showed you some different things, and my mic wasn't on. So we're gonna flip through and I'm gonna show you some of the things that I did. So remember, to make a pocket, you need to glue on at least 2 sides or 3 sides. I always glue 3 sides. I don't like having that extra flippy side. And then you can do some layering. So I've got this smaller pocket on top of a larger pocket. A bit of glue on my page. This is just one big pocket. Bands, you're going to glue the top and the bottom down. You can also glue the middle so that you can slide a couple of things in, or you can grab your glue later and put like a little dot under there to kind of seal it up once you know what you're going to put on that page. Another pocket. Here is one of the long horizontal bands. I've trimmed it down so that I can create a belly band right here in the middle and then glued these 2 ends. When I trimmed it, I cut off a little piece that looked visually pleasing, and I have created another tiny pocket here. I might put some tickets or a small tag in here and layered it with another pocket. So think about how you can take the elements and mix and match them and use them together to create visually interesting areas in your journal. Here's another horizontal band. I cut this one down as well and created a tuck up that goes up. So you can just put pieces right up in there and those will hold. and that's glued the top and two sides. And then here's where I've layered. I took a small pocket or horizontal band, either one will work, and layered it with another one of those pockets. These are overlapped by about 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch, just to keep the appearance smooth and not have any catching. I think that is really about it for the variety. I did put one under this flip here, another tuck up under the flip. And again, this was a trimmed down horizontal piece. And here's two pockets that I've spread out. This one has a large piece of ephemera that can go in it, so I spaced this one higher. So I have a second pocket, and let me see if I can find a piece of that ephemera. There we go. So this will tuck right down in here. And then if I want to put like a tab or something on top of it visually interesting, there's room here to play, and then I can put more things above that. And that's our tuck. And I think everything else is run-of-the-mill pockets. You could add pockets to these little pullouts if you wanted to, but I didn't because there's a pocket here, so I didn't feel like I needed to add more bulk there. Another tuck here. Looks like I had a little glue under there for a belly band, vertical belly band pocket. And this was one of the horizontal pieces, and I went ahead and placed it in the center of the page as another band. And I'll add some embellishments probably on the top and bottom of this, though I just visually, I liked how this looked kind of floating in the middle, so I went with it. It made me happy. So that is how I placed all of my pieces in my journal. Once you've got all your pockets and tucks and bands in, we're going to be ready to move on to the next step. In this step, we're going to be making our envelopes. There are 3 large envelopes and 2 small envelopes. All of them have cards that go inside. I've printed all of the envelopes on paper and the 1 page of large cards on cardstock. I will have these marked on the pages with what I recommend. I did print these on the back with a matching paper. So the paper that I used to make the envelope, I printed on the back of each one. This is an optional step. If you are not interested in printing the inside of your envelopes, you want to save ink, you can skip this. For these small envelopes, you will be printing these on paper as well. I also printed the ivy pattern on the back. Now keep in mind that means your cards are printed on paper, so if you want them to be more sturdy like these, you can glue them onto cardstock and then cut them out just to have that sturdiness, or you can use them as is and put them in the envelopes. So at this point, I am going to cut all of these pieces out, and then I'll come back and assemble the envelopes with you. All right, so I've got them all cut out, and I'm going to use my Beacon Fabri-Tac again. And these are all really simple. They assemble the same way. You've got 2 flaps that flip in, and then a larger flap that flips up, and a small one that flips down. So I've pre-creased all of mine, and I'm just going to run a bead of glue right up this edge, as close to the edge as I can get. And I'll press that into place. And there is my envelope. I did distress ink all the edges on these. And I'm going to repeat that. The small ones are assembled the same way. Just a little glue up that edge on both sides. And press that into place. I've got all of these glued together now. I'm going to grab my ephemera and pop it inside. It doesn't really matter which pieces you put with which envelope. You can match them up however you like. Let's see. Do kind of that. I'm going to slide all of these inside. And then let's go ahead and find a place for these in our journals. You can always move them later. But for now, let's go ahead and place them somewhere. All right, I've popped those all inside, and I'm going to go ahead and grab my journal. Now, I know for sure I'd like to put one all the way in the back of the journal. And I think I'd like this one. So I'm going to tuck that in there. And then let's see if we can find some good places. Now, my usual rule is, so I've got 2 of these. I'd like to do one before in the front half. so somewhere before this center point, and I'd like to do one in the back half. That's just kind of a rule of thumb. It helps me spread things out without having to think about them too much. Let's see how this would look under one of these bands. Kind of like that, but I'm not totally sold. Be something like that. You can always move it later. And then let's go to the back half. Will that fit in there? And it sure will. We do have an envelope right in that back pocket, so maybe we can find a slightly better place for that. This tuck could be a good spot. I kind of like that. I think that's the spot for that. I'm going to hide that right in there. So now I've got these couple of little ones, same rule, front half. Look for a fun place. I'm tempted to stick it in this little pocket here. Even though there is an ephemera card that can go right in there, it doesn't mean I can't stack them on top of each other. Let's do that for now. I'll just page through and see if something else jumps out at me, but don't think it would quite fit in there. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. And then let's go ahead and find a spot in the second half. Got an envelope under there already. What about here? This is going to be filled up with goodies probably. So it also has a card that will fit in there. That's one of those tab pockets. So I think I'm going to put that in there. And that is it for the envelope step. All right, we're starting to get down to the really fun part. We are going to be working with the larger ephemera pieces. That's any ephemera piece that can go into a pocket on its own. I've still got to the side all of the tickets and stamps and fussy cuts and little words and things like that, tabs. Those are all still off to the side, and I have pre-cut all of my larger pieces. And also I've inked everything around the edges to keep it all consistent. You also, if you sign up for the mailing list, will have 3 pages. There are some really big pieces. There is this page of cards and then these smaller cards. I've already cut these out. I like to test my fussier pieces before I put them up for sale or send them to you for free. So these 3 pages come with the freebie as well as the page of pockets that we used earlier in the video. So I still have those to cut out, but go ahead, get all of your large ephemera cut out, and let me show you. It does not include these 2 pages here. We're going to use these out in the next step. We're going to make some paper clusters with these little swatch pages. So just put these off to the side as well as anything that's really small, like tickets and stamps and things like that. All right, so I've cut out the pieces from the freebie and got those inked. And now I'm going to do, it's kind of like sketching it in. So I like to go through my journal and start pulling pieces and just kind of placing them on pages where I think I might like them to go. So I feel like this makes the process a little less stressful for me. So instead of taking each page on its own and just trying to figure out, oh, what am I going to do on this page? I've already got some things to work with. I've already tucked some tags in and come up with some ideas ahead of time, and I can just kind of play off of that. This is a really big, I thought it might be nice to put, I like that. I think something else should go in there also, but I'll come back. So I'm just going to flip through and slowly start adding pieces in that I think go together. And there's going to be some back and forth here. So I'll just kind of turn a page, grab one item, tuck it in, maybe 2. I do have a little pocket here, and I have these fun little coffin shaped tags, and that is perfect for in there. Let's not forget our little tuck. Maybe a couple of pieces in here. There are so many ephemera pieces in this kit. Oh, I like the butterfly. Let's do that. A little bit of contrast. So I am going to record my process for this, but I am going to speed it up for you so that you can see how I'm placing my things, and then you can go through and place all of your things yourself. All right, so I've gotten to a page where I've got a lot of smaller things, and I think I'd like to slide a couple of these smaller tags under this band, but they're not going to stay put because it's not tight enough. So this is where I am going to grab my glue, pull my tags out, and I'm going to make a little line under here. And smooth that into place, and I'm going to let that dry really well before I stick any more anything in there. And if it's not tight enough, I can add a little more glue later. Now you can see I've gone back to the beginning, and I'm just going to work my way through the journal a second time, adding more of the ephemera in. There's still lots of places that I can put things in here. All right, so I've gotten myself down to a little bit of ephemera left, and that's totally fine. I'm going to just put these all to the side. There's a ton left. There's just so much ephemera in this kit. This will probably mostly get placed into the journal as I am decorating my different pages. So it's fine if there's things left over. I have some pockets left over. No big deal. Those are just going to sit to the side. Some of these smaller tags could also be used as embellishments later on. So you can see I've got so much in, and then there's so much still sitting here to the side. So I'm going to move on from this phase, but now I have basically sketched in my pages so that I have something to work with when I get there. I'm not just left with a blank page and I have to come up with the entire spread. I've kind of got little things to work with, and that is going to make it easier and a little less stressful when I get to each section. The last thing I want to go over are these cluster swatch pages, and I've laid these out for you so that you can make little clusters to go as decorative elements on your journal. So these are really easy to use. You're just going to start tearing them out. You just get in there with your fingers, tear out some of the paper. I'm going to grab some of that text, and let's get some music paper. You're just going to use pieces of each one. So here's a couple of pieces to work with, and let's find a good page for a cluster in here. Here, let's decorate the center of this with a cluster. So I'm going to grab my Distress ink. This is just going to pop those edges out and make things stand out a little more. It is not necessary. You don't have to do it. And then let me get into my ephemera. And And I want one of the roses that comes with the kit. Not sure how big of one. Maybe one of the really big ones. Let's try that. And I'm just going to do a quick little layout. See how I like the look of that. And then with the rose on top, I'm losing some of that other paper, so let's move that up a bit. And I like how that looks. So what I like to do with clusters is you can glue stick them down, but I feel like they feel a little flat when you do that. Instead, I like to use my Fabri-Tac or liquid glue, and I just glue kind of in the middles, unless you're worried about it getting pulled or popped up, and that lets those edges be just a little free. It's a subtle difference. You might not notice it so much on camera, but I feel like it makes a difference. When you glue everything down perfectly flat, there's no dimension there, there's no life there. Now you can add fabric into this, maybe some cheesecloth or burlap or other lace, other things that you have on hand. And I'm going to talk about that a little more here in 1 second, because you are about to be left on your own to finish this project. There, so I have a quick little cluster on that page using the tear-outs from the cluster sheets. So at this point, I'm going to leave you to finish decorating your journal. If you are short on time, and this whole process is to try and help you streamline your journal making so that you don't have to put so much thought and energy into every little thing, every little page. If you are short on time, then my recommendation is go 1 page at a time, open it up. Or here, we'll look at the cover. Cover, I definitely need to do a little more work. I've got some words here. So maybe I grab a strip, and I've got these little layering pieces. So I'm just going to, let's find one that jumps out a little more. I like that one. So I'm going to add a little bit of text to the front of this. So you're going to take one area at a time. You have a lot of ephemera to work with, and if you add in things like lace and ribbons and anything that you have on hand, maybe charms or newspaper, music paper, all of that, you are only limited by your own creativity. Junk journals can traditionally have anything in them. Even when you're starting like this with a purely digital made journal, you can put anything in here. It's your project. And remember that whenever you decide it's done, it's done. If you like it with just everything tucked inside with no lace and no ribbon and no extra little touches, then that's it. That's your journal. You're happy with that. And there's nothing wrong with that. So then we have a little bit of text on the front. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this project. I am going to try to finish decorating this entire journal and then share a flip through in the future. But time has been a little tight, so hopefully, which is exactly why I made this video. So I'm not sure how long it's going to take me to get to it. So I will do my best to try and get this up soon as a completed journal with decorations all the way through it. We'll stick some lace on the edges, get some tabs on some things. So remember, if you sign up for the email list, there is a new freebie every Friday, plus coupon codes and alerts about new products. Please like and subscribe to get more videos like this. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.